So next up, the Pine Barrens, the St. Lawrence Alumni Triumvirate. Once again, Polly Weigand, Science and Stewardship Program Manager for the Central Pine Barrens Commission.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to be back in a shared space and see all your faces. I think I'm not the only one that feels that way due to the draw that we've had for the conference. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to update you on the Science and Stewardship Program for the Central Pine Barrens Commission. There we go. So there's been a lot of programmatic growth within the Central Pine Barrens Commission's Science and Stewardship Program. We've increased our staff. We have a seasonal prescribed fire. We have a seasonal prescribed fire. We have seasonal prescribed fire staffing as well as a part-time burn boss. We are currently hiring for backfilling of an ecologist, and we have 2 full-time ecological field specialists that have come on staff in the last 7 years. So a lot of the work that we've been focusing on has been working in cooperation with DEC to address southern pine beetle. So I'll end the presentation on a high note, but unfortunately starting on a little bit of a depressing note is southern pine beetle. So we've been working actively through southern pine beetle suppression monitoring with DEC in order to help slow the population. It is a species that is here. It's going to persist. It's established where it can't eradicate it due to its extensive distribution. It's moving into New England and mainland New York as well, and we're doing our best to manage it to protect the Pine Barrens, the urban areas, and also the Northeast. Last year, up till last year, we had seen a significant reduction in southern pine beetle, and with the flash drought that we had in July, August, and September, we saw massive spread and outbreaks in areas where we hadn't otherwise seen southern pine beetle activity. This continued to include our high-value natural areas that have been protected in public trust because of the ecological importance of them. Moved into Manorville Hills, moved up the Carmens River corridor, and unfortunately it also moved east out through Napeague. So the Napeague stretch, if you've driven out that way, has been significantly affected all the way up into Walking Dunes. The suppression that has been advanced has been through Nate Hudson out of Forest Health in Albany, and then Chris Steigerwald, who is the forest tech here on Long Island. We continue to advance the monitoring program. The state previously had been flying and doing aerial surveying, but this commission has bumped our drone program up. We have 3 licensed pilots at this point, and we've been utilizing the drones to help pinpoint and be more accurate in ground truthing and focusing that ground truthing for suppression. And then the state has also engaged professional loggers to come down to readily drop these trees and help advance suppression. Out in Napeague and Hither Hills in the Walking Dune, there was a new technique that was implemented with state parks and with the DEC. Because of the high risk of loss of all of those pines, they've gone in and actively conducted thinning in hopes that that will help dissipate the pheromones and reduce the continued loss of pitch pines in that globally rare ecosystem. And then I guess the other highlight, I want to say it's a highlight, concern is the continued development of southern pine beetle in white pines. And so with the Forest Service, we're advancing a study, a supportive study to ascertain whether or not southern pine beetle is able to complete its life cycle in white pines. But we are seeing continued mortality in white pines, especially where there's high infestation and outbreak of southern pine beetle. So we're taking a 2-fold management related to forest management. As I talked about, we're responding to active outbreaks and infestations through that suppression management, cut and leave, going in, identifying where the infestations are, using drones, using near map. If you don't have access to near map, we've moved to using that contractual business where they issue, they fly 3 times a year, so you can have the most up-to-date aerial photography. And this is great for forest health issues. And it reduces the need to fly in an airplane, take pictures, and then have to invest the time into documentation. So we use Nearmap and the drones for that aerial surveying under the DEC's lead, conduct the ground truthing, and then conducting the suppression of those infested trees. The suppression helps dissipate the pheromones, opening up the canopy, reducing mass attack, and then also we have thinning of the vegetation that helps to further move the pheromones. So the goal not only is responsive, but we're also advancing preventative management for southern pine beetle and looking at a holistic landscape scale management to prevent continued southern pine beetle outbreaks in cooperation with DEC. It's much easier to manage the forest proactively and do the preventative thinning and also implement prescribed fire where you don't have dead standing pines that are a hazard or having mass amount of organic matter through high woody material. So the Central Pine Barrens Prescribed Fire Program had a wealth of success last year. It was our first full year of having a prescribed fire program and implementing prescribed fire into the woodlands. There is upwards of 60 acres that were burned under commission lead through our burn boss, and the highest number of grassland treated acres on Long Island of over 300 acres. This year, we continue our prescribed fire programming, but the northern long-eared bat uplisting that was talked about earlier today has impacted our prescribed fire operations. We have mitigations within our plans that align with the uplisting protocols, but habitat management plans and take permits need to be applied before prescribed fire can advance. So oak wilt, positive. We haven't seen any new outbreaks of oak wilt, which is transmitted by the nididulid beetle. The beetle becomes infected with the fungus that's spread from tree to tree. So this is a great positive. The state continues to monitor and do testing. So if you see any trees that are symptomatic, you can call the commission or you can call the DEC's hotline. And hopefully we'll see this continued trend of no outbreaks of oak wilt. Not so good on the beech leaf disease. While we don't have a high abundance of beech leaf or beech trees in the Pine Barrens, it still is a highly used urban tree and very abundant on the North Shore and in Shelter Island. And unfortunately, the nematodes that are spreading the disease are in high abundance, and the trees are going to experience mortality en masse from this, and continued research is ongoing by the state and Cornell to try to ascertain what and how to prevent it. So I encourage everyone here to remain vigilant to these insects and diseases. Our forests are continuously being threatened by introductions of invasive species and then coupled with native insect life cycles. So if you are cutting infested trees, whether it is southern pine beetle infested, emerald ash borer infested, to make sure that you're not moving it off-site or within the maintaining it within the 50-mile prevention zone. So other positives for the commission that we have is that we've been working diligently with the Forest Service, with ESF, with the University of Vermont to advance all these different research studies, and some of them are actively being incorporated, including a pitch pine regeneration study, so we can ascertain how pitch pine is regenerating in the Pine Barrens and how the effects of management are influencing them. Looking at new pheromone trapping for southern pine beetle, working with the Long Island mammal study, and then taking the results of those studies that have already been done to help us further advance management. With our prescribed fire program, we are internally doing an adaptive management program so that we're not just paid arsonists, that we can improve our management as we move forward to make sure we're reaching our goal. So thank you very much.